Oh man, double full leg cramps.
Well,
It was pretty rough.
We're Sid and Mackie, and we're professional mountain bikers on a quest to race the best and most challenging mountain bike races around the world. That means we race a lot. In fact, just since the beginning of 2023, we've had 12 race days, and we've been doing this since 2014, so that's a lot of racing. Today, we're gonna let you in on a little secret. For every great race we've probably had 5 to 10 bad ones.
seriously.
It's hard.
It is. It's really hard.
We've been dead last, we've crashed out, we've had massive day-ending mechanicals,
We eventually figured out that she had bent her rear triangle, which takes a lot of force.
and we've also had days where we just sucked it up for no apparent reason.
For some reason, I did not do good on that first climb. Like, just kind of total implosion.
I recently heard this saying, winners lose more than losers. Meaning if you want to win, you're going to have to do a lot of losing first. And you're going to have to make peace with that. In today's video, we're going to do a little post-mortem on last week's race in Grand Junction. We both had pretty disappointing days, finishing way off the pace that we think we're capable of.
I just got blown up on that first climb.
But instead of getting discouraged or beating ourselves up about it, it's time to see what we can learn.
The answer is probably somewhere in the middle. There are some things that all three of us could have done better, and some things that just like none of us could control.
So this morning we are gonna sit down and talk to Coach Mike about what happened this past weekend at Grand Junction and kind of get his ideas on, you know, did we underperform? Did we just have a bad day? Were there things that we could do better in the future? Were there things that caused this that were out of our control? We just need to be like, that happened. In the past, we have not spent a ton of time in videos doing our post-race analysis. I would say one of my hesitations with including that is I don't want people to think that we are making excuses for our performances, and I think this is where you get into that kind of tricky territory of the difference between reasons and excuses. If it's before an event, it's an excuse. If it's given, you know, to your competitors directly after a race, might be an excuse. Reasons are, you know, you're taking full responsibility. We got the results that we got this past weekend, but we also both believe it wasn't our best performance. There is a lot of benefit in trying to find the reasons for something, why something didn't go the way you had hoped. It might just be, hey, we're not where we'd like to be yet, and that's actually okay, but if there were things that went wrong in the build up to this race or our prep that are things that we can control and do better, we need to identify that and, you know, own up to that and do better. We are recording this conversation.
This conversation is being recorded for training and maintenance, what is it? Training
For a
purposes.
YouTube video in this case. Yeah, it didn't go great.
First of all, I noticed it was like a pretty stacked field. I thought the training went good in between the enduro and the race. Okay, you got out of town a little late and had to do a ride that morning. I think that's fine for you guys. Recover well enough where I didn't think that was an issue.
I felt pretty good in the crit because like that whole week between the enduro and Grand Junction, like I definitely had moments of thinking I was getting sick or like just not feeling good, and definitely like the allergies kicked in, and I felt really good in the crit, so I was like, cool, we're fine. And then the next morning I did not feel good. I felt like my breathing was completely out of control, heart rate was completely out of control. It was very punchy and like technical climbing, but I think it was all things I should have been able to do, but I was getting knocked off my bike just because I was like gassed.
You know, the old Epic series, you guys, like, you would do that on Friday night and then not race again until Sunday. Definitely made things easier as far as recovery, and there wasn't such a rush to get tires swapped out. That adds complexity to the situation. There's stress involved in that.
5,900 feet of climbing in 40 miles. So I don't know if it's that's just like still not quite where I'd like to be climbing wise, or was I just like going slow for other reasons? I don't know.
The answer is probably somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
Of like, hey, there's some things that all three of us could have done better to make the day better, and some things that just like none of us could control. It's always great to get a good result, whether it's a peak race or not. But looking at it, like, I didn't see this one as a peak race for a couple reasons. One, it's a totally new format for like both of you to do the Fat Tire Crit and then the marathon distance race the next morning. It's a relatively new format even for me, like to walk somebody through. How do we make sure that we make the most of those 12 hours? Yeah, I would have said it's something we train through, because I would rather see like, hey, if we're going to have an off day, let's have it here where you're a couple hours from home and it's a one-day thing versus having a less than optimal day, or even just say a bad day at BC or Downeyville.
I don't get the warm-ups when it's that early because I have trouble getting my together in time to get a warm-up.
We also have not been
I am
training
solidly a
in the morning.
9:30 a.m. start person.
It makes a difference. If you know you're going to race in the morning every day, you should put in some workouts in the morning.
Yeah.
So maybe that's something we think about going into BC. I don't think it's a super early start. It's not like a 7:30 start, but it's still pretty early, I think.
Yeah, and like for the growler as well, I think the growler is a 7:30 start, and it also is like a very similar start to this one in that it's a neutral start and then like an all-out straight up a hill thing. I had trouble with that last year.
I've been building training for you guys that really emphasizes being strong for the whole race. In the next couple weeks leading up to the growler, I'll probably change that, and they're like, hey, you're warmed up, hit it hard for 5-10 minutes before we get into the meat of the ride to kind of simulate what it's going to be like at the growler.
I'm kind of having a hard time deciding how to feel about the race. Yeah, it's unfortunate that I flatted, but that was just a decision that I made that was the wrong decision, and that's fine. I don't know if I should be reasonably happy because I still ended up only like 6 minutes behind Jeff and Steven, so I'm sort of like, okay, that could be basically the flat, but I was 23 minutes or something behind Howard Grotz, who won. I would like to not be that far behind Howard Grotz.
He's got that more traditional cross-country build,
Yeah.
so he's going to go uphill a little bit faster. Do we need to get there? No, I don't think we need to get there to close a good chunk of that. It's just continued work.
After talking to Mike, a few things became clear. One, we weren't nearly as recovered going into Grand Junction as we had hoped to be. Some life stressors outside of bike racing had complicated things, and we had not done a great job of communicating this to Mike, and it just plowed on with the training anyway. Overall, our recovery had taken a hit for a few weeks, and while we thought we had gotten away with it, it definitely showed in our race performance. Number two, we both had pretty poor starts in this race, but the good news is we can do something about that. We can make some changes to the training and our warm-up to help with this. So that's what we're doing next.
After talking to Mike yesterday, we're feeling super motivated. We have a new plan. Mike has changed up our workouts a little bit to kind of help us deal with those really fast, hard starts. So that's one change, and that's what we'll be doing today. The other change is that we are doing our workout in the morning. We kind of get in a habit of doing the workouts later over the winter because A, we like to do our heavy gym work before the ride, which makes sense, and also it's cold until like noon. So that is no longer the case. It's definitely time to transition to morning workouts. It probably that was that time a month ago, but we didn't do it, and I think that definitely makes it a little harder to like be going at 7:30 in the morning when you're used to riding and training at like 2 to 3 p.m. I think doing the training first in the day will also help us kind of put it back on the pedestal as our priority and the number one thing. I think that got a little lost over the past month and a half because we were doing so much editing and so much focus on content and other things that even though we were doing all the training, the recovery was taking a hit and it didn't really feel like we were prioritizing it as number one, and that does make a difference. I will be doing 2 very hard efforts right after the warm-up, so that's again kind of simulating what that feels like during a race. I'll have 2 2-minute efforts at VO2 max basically, so it's 289 to 313 watts for me. That is going to be hard. And then a critical piece of this is the recovery in between, so I'm gonna work on some breathing techniques in the 2-minute rest period, then a 30-minute active. So that's just an endurance zone, 30 minutes. We'll ride some trails over to where we are going to do part 2, which is 2 by 15-minute thresholds. That's 212 to 236 watts for me. So we will see how that goes. I'm not 100% sure my legs are recovered from Grand Junction, but you don't know till you try.
So my workout's a little bit different than Sid's. Instead of 2-minute efforts at the beginning, I have 30-second efforts, but I have 6 of them with 15 seconds in between, and then 2 sets of that. So yeah, it's gonna be hard. But I guess probably does sort of mimic what the start at Grand Junction looked like, which is probably what Mike is thinking. 30 minutes of endurance, and then 2 18-minute intervals at threshold. So yeah, you know.
I would say we have very successfully simulated an extremely lackluster warm-up on a relatively cool day. I'm gonna hit some carbs here, because that helps. There's probably not enough of anything in that. And then, yeah, pray for me, I guess.
Mark, I love you.
Thanks.
Okay. 30 seconds on, 15 seconds off. Okay. 15 off.
All right, 305 for that first one. So, very solid.
Oh man. That was hard.
Now we're gonna ride about half an hour of trail.
All right. Oops, wrong button. Come on, Mackie. Second set.
Getting over to the hill where I was planning to do these intervals is taking a bit longer than I expected. And I really do want to stay in my endurance zone, because otherwise might be making the intervals harder than they need to be. Figure out what the fastest way over there is going to be. Okay, so we are going up Pipeline Road, which is very similar to the starts of some of these races we've been doing. Just to say, go straight up the hill, and it's paved right here, but in about in about 30 seconds, it's going to turn into trunk. So, here we go.
Start of the first 18-minute interval. Going up Pipeline Road. Yeah, I suspect these are going to be little bit hard. But I also suspect it's exactly what I need.
Here's the chunk.
All right, one interval down. Was not as bad as I was afraid it would be. It wasn't easy, that's for sure. But yeah, I think it went pretty well. Now I've got 3-minute rest and then the second one.
Oh guys, that was not good. That was my first time all year, like just about almost not making it in the zone. Literally the worst one of those I've done, but I guess it's probably kind of the point. This is another opportunity to do better. Last one was not great.
Well, I made it quite a bit farther than I expected to on that interval. And, well, it was harder.
That was not good. Oh, that was frustrating. Oh man.
Hello, how you doing?
Please tell me you at least struggled a little bit.
On those ones?
Yeah.
Yeah, especially the second one. The first one I was like, okay. The second one I was like, I'm dying.
Those are the worst I've done all year. Decided to go for like more Asian tuna salad direction. So mixed up some tuna, a can of tuna with like mayo and just a little bit of sesame oil, a little bit of soy sauce, some scallions, and then just make a rice bowl with all that, some eggs, a bunch of veg. I've had better presentation, but I think it's gonna taste pretty good.
I don't do presentation, but it's gonna be delicious.
So this workout was pretty hard. But if we've learned anything in almost 10 years of racing bikes, it's that the workouts where you set no PRs, get 0 Strava trophies, reach no new power thresholds, that is to say, the workouts where you are truly struggling, that's where the real work is being done. And over the next few weeks, we'll get a chance to see if it's gonna pay off.